So listen to this. I promise you in 10 years this random match you're watching will be legendary. You see the ball boy standing right behind the advertising boards? Yeah, by the time that game ended, everyone was saying that he was the man of the match. When his team gave away the penalty that would send them into the relegation zone with only 7 minutes left on the clock, the kid yelled at the keeper to jump to his right, and he saved it. But the crazy thing is that apparently this happened a lot. Around the club, everyone called him 2.5, cause they said it took 2 players to score a goal, but with a ball boy like him, he deserved at least half as much praise as them. And I know, you're wondering, who even is this kid? But I guess it depends who you ask. Most will probably tell you that he's the Turkish Messi, that he's the greatest Turkish player of all time, a future Ballon d'Or winner. But his real name is Arda Guler. And what makes him so special is that despite the fact he's already receiving all of this praise, despite the fact he's been one of the best players at this summer's Euros, he's still only 19 years old. Think about it, when he was born, Ronaldo was already on the Ballon d'Or list. For a Turkish kid to reach these heights so quickly is simply unprecedented. So much so that, when a scout finally found him, no one even believed him. You see, Arda's talent isn't as natural as you may think. It's that built him to be the player he is today. It's not even that he's wearing Fenerbahce gear in damn near all of his childhood photos, or that his dad had already stuck him in an academy by the time he was 4. It's the fact that the kid wasn't even left-footed. As his own father admitted, we never had any left-footed people in the family, but ever since he was a baby, whenever I'd put balloons or footballs in front of him, I'd only let him use his left. By the time the kid had moved to Gençler Birlik's academy at 9 years of age, he already had his entire career planned. He kept telling everyone, from here I'll move to Fenerbahce, then to Europe once I'm 18. And everyone believed him. I mean, his coaches struggled to understand how it was even possible that he was already so good. One of them would even tell the press it was as if the ball was one of his organs, part of his body. At 13 years of age, he was already so mesmerizing that club president Murav Javjav had repeatedly told the board that the boy was not to be sold for less than $1 million. But well, then Mr. Javjav passed away and his best kept secret was exposed. Only a year later, a Fenerbahce scout named Serhat Bekmeshi was sitting in the stands hoping to watch some other kid when, in his own words, once there, all I could see was Arda. By the end of the match, I followed him to his father's car. They took me into their home. His old room was Fenerbahce, posters all over the walls. He told me his dream was to become the next Alex. But I guess it all seemed a bit too perfect because when Serhat told the club about this kid he claimed could be a starter for Fenerbahce by the time he turned 15, the president himself pretty much kicked him out the door thinking that he was making up stories. In his own words, no one took me seriously. I felt like Don Quixote, like I was imagining things, but I didn't give up. At the risk of losing my job, I prepared the DVD with all of Arda's best plays and begged the president's driver to show it to him. Only a few days later, he was already calling him asking how much money he should pay for the kid, but when Serhat told him I would pay $500,000 lira without thinking twice, the president replied, "What are you saying? They only asked for 250, and though by the end they even managed to negotiate it all the way down to 150, about the same as 23,000 euros, they ended up conceding to a 20% sell-on fee, which they'd soon realize was a big mistake. Once at the club, though the pandemic stopped him from ever getting the chance to debut at 15 and make Serhat's prophecy a reality, he pretty much joined the under-19 straight away, and only a few months later, manager Vitor Pereira had already bumped him up to first-team training, telling the press that I worked in FC Porto's academy for years and I can say I did not see many players get close to Arda's level. But the thing is, he was still nowhere near his full potential. At that point, despite the 4-year difference between him and his teammates, Arda was on 7 goals and 4 assists in 19 matches, but as impressive as that was, the moment they went into the playoffs, he pulled off 6 goal contributions in just 3 matches, and so, only 2 games into the next season, he was finally getting his debut. The game after that, he was coming in with 3 minutes left and getting his first assist, and by his third, he was being subbed in for Mesut Ozil himself. At 16, he was quite literally replacing one of his biggest idols at the club of his dreams, and soon, much thanks to Guler, there would be no Ozil to be replaced. Over the next 2 months, Guler proved those playoff matches had been no fluke, not just getting 9 goal contributions in just 6 matches back with the under-19s, but being called up for the Turkish under-17s and getting another 3 contributions in 3 matches, meaning that even though an injury stopped him for about a month right at that very moment, once he made it back, Vitor Pereira got in the second with new manager Ismail Kartal looking to shake things up. He called Guler up to play in the Conference League, and the kid immediately went in with 2 assists against Slavia Prague, 1 at home and a ridiculous 1 while playing away, somehow managing to sneak his first ever league start right in between those 2 games, and still taking the Man of the Match award with an overwhelming 87% of the votes. At that point, the entire country was behind Guler. Every match the Fenerbahce fans chanted his name, hoping the manager would bring him in, and so, with 10 matches left in the league season, Kartal found himself 20 points off the top of the table, stuck at a 2-goal draw against Alanyaspor, and knowing that Guler had just carried Turkey's under-17s to the Euros with 2 more goals in the final qualification matches, he caved into the fans' demands, and for one final time, Ozil was subbed out for Guler. And not only had he already put them in front 3 minutes later, making himself the youngest ever player to score for Fenerbahce, but he then proceeded to get 2 assists as well, turning what seemed like a match to forget into a 5-2 humiliation. From there on out, there was no way to deny this 16-year-old deserved more game time, so the decision was made to bring him in for every match that was left of the season, and damn, despite the fact Fenerbahce ended up drawing 2 out of the last 3 league matches the moment Guler went out with a hip injury, while he was still available, he led them on a 7-match winning streak, not just getting 2 more goals and an assist, but changing every match the moment he came on, even though he barely ever got more than 20 minutes on the pitch, still managing to bring Fenerbahce all the way up to 2nd place, within 8 points of the title. Once all was said and done, Guler had averaged a goal every 44 minutes throughout the entire season, meaning that, as much as it was too soon to take conclusions, it was a fact that not even prime Messi had managed to pull numbers that absurd. So, with that silky left-footed dribbling, the Turkish fans could not resist the comparison, and before you knew it, Arda Guler had become the Turkish Messi. His market value had increased tenfold, and there were offers from Arsenal and Bayern, but if there were any worries the hype could get to him, well, as the scout who found him would say, he is a 16-year-old kid with the mentality of a 30-year-old veteran. His family raised him to be as mentally tough as they get. They will never allow anything to spoil Arda's future. So when in his 3rd season, legendary Jorge Jesus, who's notorious for refusing to work with younger players, took over the team and proceeded to kick Ozil out of the club, instead choosing to extend Arda's contract for a further 3 years before handing him the number 10 instead, suddenly, it wasn't just that a 17-year-old had made Ozil seem disposable. It was about the fact that, with that number on his back, he was now responsible for carrying on the legacy left by the likes of Robin van Persie, JJ Okocha, Tanju Sholak, Diego Ribas, and above all, his idol Alex Sousa. So with Jesus still insisting on keeping him on the bench despite all that had happened, right on his 1st league match of the season, Guler came in late and added 2 more goals to his tally, meaning that by November, with Fenerbahce needing a win against Dynamo Kiev to secure the top spot in the Europa League group, Jesus gave him what was still only the 5th start of his career, and he pulled off yet another man of the match performance, scoring the opener by lobbing the entire defense, and then putting in the corner that settled the result at a 2-0 win, leading Italian newspaper Gazzetta dello Sport to write that a talent such as him only comes around once in 100 years, then getting his first ever call-up to the Turkish national team and forcing Fenerbahce to go back to Gençler Birliği, trying to buy them out of the 20% sell-on fee they had given them, eventually falling into a pit of endless negotiations that only ended with Fener paying them 2.5 million euros, as well as allowing them to take 8 of their players out on loan. From this point forward, game time was never as much of an issue. Right after New Year's, Guler got 2 starts in a row and dominated both matches, not just getting an assist in the first, but going even further against Kazim Paza, creating 5 chances in total, then hitting the post with a 25-yard lob, with Valencia scoring in the rebound. So when 5 matches later it was time to play Beşiktaş, Guler was afforded his first ever start in a derby, and not only did he win the penalty that put Fener in front 1-0, but kept on putting his teammates in one-on-one one-on-one situations with the keeper, eventually leading to yet another penalty, meaning that, despite the defeat, Arda was still named by many as the man of the match, telling the press that, "I don't feel any pressure on me, I play with pleasure every single time." And indeed, you could tell, by the time the league season was over, despite having lost out on the title and only played a tad over 900 minutes, Guler had created 40 goal-scoring chances, one every 23 minutes, quite literally the league's all-time record. And if you check the rate at which he was racking up expected assists, only 7 players in Europe could outdo him, and among them were Messi, Neymar, and De Bruyne. But the thing is, so far, I've been keeping a secret from you. In the Turkish Cup, Guler was even better. Look, he assisted a decisive goal in the last 16, he scored in the quarters, he even started a play that led to the semi-finals opening goal with a backheel touch. But still, none of that compared to his performance in the final. That one was the best of his career, according to many, the one that led Real to come for his signing. Going up against Başakşehir, everyone thought it would be a tough game, but instead, only 1 minute in, Guler had already assisted the opening goal, and he did not slow down. He was virtually unplayable all match. Not only did he barely ever lose possession, he completed 91% of his passes, he did not hit a single long ball, but most impressively, in that final, he created 8 goal-scoring chances. Not 1, not 2, not 3 or 4, 8 in a single match. There have not been many players able to reach those numbers, let alone in a final at 18 years of age. It wasn't even up for discussion who was the man of the match. In fact, a week later, after he became the youngest player to ever score for Turkey in an official match, with a strike so ridiculous the British commentator said that a goal like that should automatically win any match, Tuttosport named him in the initial list for the Golden Boy Award. The kid had been playing so absurdly well when they asked Ozil himself if there was a number 10 better than him, despite being well in order to feel some kind of resentment towards the kid. He said, "I can think of a name. I have a brother that I believe in. May God protect him from the evil eye. His name is Arda Guler." But unfortunately, it seemed the evil eye was already coming for him. With his father having negotiated a surprisingly low €17.5 million release clause into his contract, the transfer rumors had been going wild for months. Arsenal, Liverpool, Bayern, Dortmund, PSG, Benfica, Newcastle. It looked like every club in Europe was willing to go into a free-for-all for his signing, and as much as everyone in Turkey seemed to be uniting forces with the goal of keeping him in the club, no one could change his mind, and as the negotiations moved on, it seemed almost certain that he would join Barcelona. You see, with Barca having just come to terms with the reality that Messi's comeback was never gonna come true, they felt like signing the Turkish Messi would be the easiest way to appease the fans, so they went after him with all they had. But just as Real won't speed above the release clause for Vini just to stop Barcelona from getting the kid they called the next Neymar, they pulled the same stunt once again, making Fenerbahce an offer that could go up to 30 million with bonuses, and even adding a 20% sell-on fee, which, to put it lightly, was just completely mad. No other club was ever matching that. Only a day after announcing the signing, Arda was already being unveiled at the Bernabeu as his mom teared up among the audience, and despite worries that he wouldn't even get a chance to play since, after all, in the previous season, aside from Camavinga, not a single under-21 player had been allowed to start a match in La Liga, Guler made sure to tell everyone in his first speech, "I refuse to go on loan. This is the most special day of my life. It's an honor to be here, and all I want is to become a legend at this club, to show the world what a Turkish young man can do." But as much as the hype hit unprecedented levels, with a tweet that welcomed him to Real Madrid, becoming the most liked in the history of the club, racking up almost 1 million likes, less than 20 days later, as he prepared to play his first match, one misstep in training was enough to damage his meniscus tendon, and suddenly he was out. Had it been a bit worse, it could have been over for Guler. He may have never been the same player again, but still, it wasn't easy. After the surgery, his young, still inexperienced body simply wasn't prepared for how grueling recovery would be. Another injury arrived every time he thought he was gonna be allowed back in training. But once he finally was, he kept raising the expectations, repeatedly teasing thousands of Madrid fans, shocking everyone who attended their sessions with little glimpses of his otherworldly skills that even Toni Kroos could not believe, telling the press that, "I'm always careful when it comes to talking about young players, but Arda is one of those that leaves you asking, how did he even do that? And precisely 6 months after the day of his signing, it finally happened. Guler was called up for a Copa del Rey match, and instantly, it took everyone's breaths away. As one newspaper put it, if his beautiful hit free kick didn't strike the post, we'd have been looking at an all-timer debut. It even earned the Ancelotti nod of approval. And even though over the next 3 months he would never get more than 13 minutes a match, glimpses of his genius kept making it to the surface. At one point, coming in with 1 minute left versus Celta de Vigo and instantly dribbling past the keeper to get his first Real Madrid goal. But regardless, after spending nearly 300 days watching from the sidelines as his teammates slowly climbed their way up to a Champions League final, with 5 matches left in the league season and the title pretty much secured, Ancelotti finally gave him a place in the starting 11, and he just took over. In the first of those 5 matches, he scored to secure a 1-0 win versus Sociedad, and after a more quiet yet still brilliant performance versus Cádiz, he came back with 4 goals in 3 matches, totaling 6 in 440 minutes, before closing out the season by being nominated to the Golden Boy Award and becoming the first ever Turkish player to take a Champions League winner's medal, despite the fact he didn't even come off the bench, leading him to tell the press right then and there that, "I can promise you next year, I'm going to play a key role in these moments." And judging by the way he's been playing at the Euros, going in with a screamer in the first match, not just taking the Player of the Match award, but becoming the youngest player to secure a goal on his Euros debut since none other than Real Madrid legend Cristiano Ronaldo, I wouldn't doubt him for a second.